Ready to go live in 3, 2, 1.
Fine.
You are on the air.
On the way.
مساء الخير جميعاً، أهلاً وسهلاً بكم في هذه الجلسة النقاشية من فعاليات مؤتمر أريج. نحن ممتنون لحضور المخرج اليوناني نيكوس ميغريليس، مخرج فيلم شوتينج فيرس شوتينج، الحاصل على العديد من الجوائز العالمية وعضو في اللجنة التنفيذية للاتحاد الدولي.
The International Union of Journalists. This film is a great testimony about the hazards and challenges that journalists are going through in the conflict areas and hot zones. Journalists made people realize that the outcomes and the hazards that they challenges and face during conveying the stories and the humanitarian stories to convey the truth to us are many. This film indicates that impunity, unfortunately, is not the exception, but it is the rule. To begin with, I'd like to learn from you what is the idea that was the basic point to work on this film.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And first of all, let me tell you that I'm very honored and thankful to the organizers for being here and screening the film. You asked me what was how being a journalist helped me to make this film. Well, it has helped me in a lot of ways. First of all, because I grew up in a media environment in Greece. At that time, in the beginning of the 80s, where journalism was respected, and what was very important, it wasn't it was the quality, not the quantity of the news. And also, it was very important, not the time that you deliver the news, but how accurate the news were. So this helped me to, it gave me an education, let's say journalistic education, to cross-check the news, the informations, and write and try to put both sides. That's what I did in the film. As you have seen, I had the interview of the guy who pulled the trigger and killed the two journalists. And also I had the guy who shot at the car of Juliana Skrena. But at the same time, I showed very much and I enlightened the tragedy. Because, you know, we live in a world of numbers, of figures. But this is not the important thing. The important thing is the tragedy that's behind every single killing, every single assassination.
شكراً. طيب.
Your journalist experience, how did it impact the production of this documentary that took 10 years to be produced?
No, it didn't take 10 years, it took 3 years. I have been to 10 countries to make this film. I have been twice in Iraq, and the second time, and I had the scene there. I had the images. The second time when I was in Iraq, there was a car bomb explosion downtown Iraq, downtown Baghdad. 100 people were dead and 500 left injured. And the important thing is to be on the spot and feel the feelings of the people who are living in this situation. And secondly, to try to be not to die for telling the truth, but to stay alive to tell the truth.
ما زلنا حتى اليومنا
Until now, we see journalists being targeted in Gaza and in many places of conflict, despite the fact that they are wearing their vests that will declare that they are persons of press. They are targeted clearly, despite they are just doing their job. How filmmaking is doing an impact? What is the impact of your filmmaking to create a difference about what's going on in reality?
Well, it's not only trying to make a film about the atrocities in the war and targeting journalists, but all you have to try to raise the awareness of the whole world for the atrocities in a war, for the war crimes. If, let me tell you, let's take it from the other side. If we keep silent, the atrocity will keep going on, and it will be more and more and more, and it will be like a nightmare that will never end. Trying to raise the awareness of the people, we can make sometimes some small but very important steps forward. And so one of the steps that were made forward was the fact that Juliana Skrena, at the end, that we watched in the film, at the end she came back alive. Why this happened? Because immediately, she was lucky at the time, because when she was abducted by the terrorist group, she was speaking on the phone with the Italian colleague. So immediately she gave the news that now I'm abducted. And the Italian colleagues in Italian newspapers, they made a big mobilization, and the Italians took the streets, and they pushed the Italian government to negotiate with the terrorists and liberate Juliana Skrena. So this is a small forward step, but it's not always going straight on. We have back and forth, and because this is life.
What are the challenges that you are still facing or previously faced in making these kind of movies and documentaries?
Well, first of all, you have to be very accurate in the informations that you receive. Now we have the the fact checkers, which is very important, and I pay a lot of respect in their job. But the very important thing is also that you must be on the spot, because on the spot you get the feeling, you get the drama, you get the how very important is what is happening in front of your eyes. But on the same time, you have to cross-check all the news, and you have to stay away from two things. One is the propaganda. You must not be a propagandist. Then second, you must not repeat or spread the hate speech, because then you are part of this and not above this.
We'd like you to hear from the audience if they have any question.
Thank you very much for the very powerful film. The shocking aspects is the opinion of the soldiers and how they justified the atrocities to themselves. How did you deal with such responses if you had collected the interviews and if they were collected by other people? What do you think? How can we pass the message that a particular intrinsic role of the army is to protect the journalists, and where is the gap that we can bridge?
The interviews were made from they were made at the time before I start my filming, and but unfortunately they were not, in the front lines. I had to dig a lot in order to find these videos with the responses, and I choose to have them in the film just to show how cruel is and how how they feel when they shoot. And I think that this makes the issue more powerful, and makes us feel that we have to respect the lives of the people, of the innocent people. We have to respect the lives of journalists, and we have to respect the mission of the journalists, which is not, of course, their favored issue.
نعم لو سمحتي.
Hi, my name is Molly Hazaz. I work with UNESCO. I coordinate a multi-donor program to support the safety of journalists. And the journalists tell the story of what people go through, right? Whether they're covering war, conflict, disaster. And you tell the story of the journalists and what they go through. And when they're attacked, they lose their life. So thank you for that, number one. I have watched so many documentaries. We support journalists, we meet them. And still, every time you watch such a documentary and you know more, it has the same impact. But my question is, and this is something where I tried now to find the link to your film because I have a lot of colleagues who I know they'll be very interested to watch. I couldn't find it. The thing is that I feel that films with such a message, not just about journalists, but all films about what people need to know, should be available for people to watch. So I couldn't find it anywhere. I was searching throughout and I couldn't find it. I sent my colleagues a link to watch this, and I didn't know if they register now to ARIJ, they'll be able to watch it still. So this is my question. I think these are very valuable, films and information that they convey. So this is my question, and of course I'd love to see how I can share with my colleagues in the field and at headquarters. But just wanted to point out that this is important for it to be available. Thank you.
Yes, you are right. It's not available on the internet. And due to, it's not my fault, it's of the producer's fault or decision, if I say. Because of the intellectual rights. But this film has been screened in more than 20 countries. In Japan, in Turkey, in Latin America, in many countries in Latin America, in Russia, in China, in many countries, in European countries, Spain among others. And but we have to solve the problem that you said. I mean, it must be on the internet, because now the internet is the mass media. And I will try to do my best on that. And thank you very much. I would like to point out and pay my respect to 3 colleagues that you have seen in the film, and they passed away. The first was Yannis Bechrakis, the photojournalist, who was a good friend of mine, and he was awarded. He was working for Reuters, and he was many times awarded as the photojournalist of the year. And he has been in many war zones, Afghanistan, Iraq, and in many others, ex-Yugoslavia. and he passed away from cancer. The two others, Anthony Shadid, the American one, he won 3 Pulitzers. And when I met him in New York, he wrote a book. He had his own book, and he wrote, "See You in Baghdad, Nikos." Unfortunately, 2 or 3 years later, he died. He was trying. He went to Syria to cover the civil war, and he crossed the borders on a horse. He was suffering from asthma, and being in touch with the horse 2 or 3 days, his asthma was activated. And he had some medicines with him, but they were not enough to keep him in life. So when he got into Homs, he died there. And the third was Mika Yamamoto, the Japanese one. She filmed what has happened in Palestine Hotel just after the shooting. And she was killed by a sniper in Syria, in Aleppo, while she was trying to cross a street. So I pay respect to my colleagues.
بداية نشكر السيد نيكوس
I have to thank Mr. Nikos for this wonderful work. My first question is regarding the documentary work on targeting journalists, and if this work was old. So, Mr. Nikos, amidst all these events, do you see that there are certain angles that could have been added to this film? When a person is writing a book, he could reread it and then do a new copy with the developing events. This applies to journalists also, as we see these events as of historic battles. Do you have a certain vision? If you were given a chance to reproduce such stories, would there have been any angles to be added? My next other question is, this documentary, did it lead to asking or reaching out to the people who resulted in these killing events so that they would not enjoy impunity?
Sorry, I didn't catch the second question. What was the second question?
هو السؤال
The second question is about the value of the work, the legal value of the documentary work. That were you able to meet or to reach out to the persons who caused the killing, and was this documentary used as a criminal documentary against those people, and did they enjoy impunity or were they punished?
No, unfortunately, they enjoy impunity, and they enjoy impunity because the Americans, they were saying that was their problem. So because they had it was their own problem, and they would solve it between them. And because they were soldiers, they got impunity. For your first question, always a journalist, when he looks back to what he has done, he thinks that some things he could write them in a better way or do it in a better way. Regarding the film, you know, one of the things that I wanted to keep balance, it was between trying to find a balance between the emotions that were produced by watching the film, and at the same time trying to keep very clear some questions regarding journalism in nowadays. And that's why I went back to the Vietnam War, because the Vietnam War has changed the attitude of the government how to cover a war. Because the American journalism at that time was free to report from the war zone. And after that, the Americans, who are, of course, the one step forward from all the other countries in such things, they said, okay, the next war, we will cover it as a video game. And if you remember the first war, the first Gulf War against Iraq, there was only one journalist covering it, on the spot, was Peter Arnett. And we had the war in ex-Yugoslavia. We had the images that we were getting. It was like a video game, just bombs that were targeting from the filming was from very high, and we couldn't see the tragedy that was on the ground and the people that are suffering. It was like a video game. So that's the why it's very important to have journalists on the spot. But as I said before, it's not only to write about the truth, but also to stay alive in order to give the truth to the audience.
هل هنالك أحد لديه المزيد من
Are there any other questions? What piece of advice you could share with journalists who would like to start working on documentaries, for example?
Three things. Yes. Cross-checking, it's very, very important. Four things, actually. Being on the spot, second issue. Third, try to tell the truth and not to be part of one or the other side. And focus on the human tragedy. A friend of mine, a doctor, he told me a story. He went to a war zone, and a mother with her children approached him, and he said, please, we are injured, please take care of us. So he took the two children, and then he gave some medicines, and then he turned to the mother, and now he said, it's now your turn. Let me see from what are you suffering? And the mother said, I don't care about my life. Please try to make my children well, because I want to take revenge for the death of their father. So, revenge of the death of their father. These are the consequences of a war. It's not the infrastructure that gets destroyed. Buildings, roads, ships, they can rebuild. But the hate passing from one generation to another generation this is what haunts the lives of people. And this is what the journalists, they have to spot and to bring light to this.
لدينا سؤال من
we have a question on Zoom. Why do you use North and South terminology? These are actually political terminology as opposed to media when you do a documentary.
Sorry?
Why do you use terms such as in your documentary you use terms, political terms to show places like North and South?
North and where? I didn't catch the question. North and South where?
اوكي. هنالك سؤال اخر من الحضور.
There's another question.
تفضل.
It's a technical question. Technical question. Yeah. I saw many stories in different locations. So, what is your way for building the film structure? Okay.
Okay. Well, you know, making a film is not a one-man show. Of course, at the end, the signature is of the director. But there are a lot of co-workers with you all the time. And it's very important to choose people who share your point of view, how we work, how responsible we are for the work, and how we're trying to do our best while we are working. So one is to choose your co-workers, and the second is to sometimes trying to think out of the box, trying to reach what you want to bring into light different ways. And always think that you have to try even something that you think that is impossible. For instance, from this film I had two experiences. The one is someone told me, why don't we ask Juliana Skrena to come with us to Baghdad? And my first thought was, okay, Juliana Skrena, that she was abducted and she was as a hostage for 1 month in Baghdad, she would like to go back and live through again this. But because I knew her, I called on the phone and she said, can we talk about this in Piazza Repubblica in the next coming 2 days? And I said yes. And I went to Rome, and she said, I'm coming with you, which was, you know, very surprising. And the second thing, I was talking with some Italian colleagues, and one of them, he told me, what about music of the film? And I said, now I'm doing the filming, I didn't thought about the film, the music. And he didn't say anything else. He picked up the phone. He said, Maestro, I have a journalist who is a filmmaker who is, I was born in Italy, who is half Italian, let's say, and he would like to speak to you and ask you to contribute with your music to the film. And he passed me the phone. And on the other side of the line was Piovani. Piovani was Oscar nominated, awarded for his music, The Life is Nice, for the concentration camp, the life in the concentration camps. And I said, is it possible that Oscar Piovani will contribute to my film while he has got an Oscar? But it came true. I mean, you have to dare sometimes to do things that from your first sight is impossible. Nothing is impossible unless you don't try it.
Any other questions? Any more questions? Thank you for being here, sir, Nicolas. We are so happy that you are sharing your experience in filmmaking and documentation. Thank you all for our audience, and we'll meet you tomorrow again in ARIJ Forum.
I thank you very much, and I thank you, the organizers of this wonderful conference. Thank you very much.